All right. Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Fire, Breathe, and Rock. Please like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube and definitely share these videos. They're with amazing people that do amazing things all over the country. So thank you for that. We have a progressive firebrand that's coming on today from Washington State, and he's running for the 5th District in Washington State. This is Chris Armitage. And it's, if you want to go and look at his website, it's armitageforcongress.com. So, Chris, thanks so much for coming on the program. Really appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you for having me on. Look forward to getting to know some new folks through this and getting our message out there, because I know we got the winning message. It's just a matter of getting it out there.
Agreed, 100%. So let's first start off with viewers that don't know you, Chris. Can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I come from a blue-collar background. My dad was worked in HVAC repair and worked for the railroad as a conductor. He actually left white-collar work to do that blue-collar work. My grandfather was a delivery driver with the Teamsters. And then I joined the Air Force right out of high school because I wanted an opportunity at a living wage, guaranteed housing, quality universal health care. I served as security forces in the Air Force. Went on 2 non-combat deployments, worked as a base defense operations controller. Remember helping out family members with their medical bills while I was deployed, which never felt very fair because those are good folks. They pay their taxes, they vote, they raise good kids. Why should they not have health care? But I did when they're serving their country in other ways. They might have the ability to serve their country. While I was active duty, I also went to college thanks to the GI Bill as active duty, did that online, thankfully, which is an incredible resource for a lot of our military folks. I earned my Master's of Science in Homeland Security. I specialized in disaster preparedness and emergency response, as well as human trafficking, both labor and sex-based. I left the military, made the next natural career progression. I went into stand-up comedy full-time, been doing that for quite a few years, and then stepped into the race.
What was the tipping point for you that, you looked at the country and said, hey, I got to get out here and do something because, we do need Medicare for all, we do need housing for all, and there's many other objectives we need to accomplish in this country. But what was that tipping point for you?
For most of I didn't get out of the military until 2017, so I served for part of the Trump administration. And most of my military career, I really tried to stay apolitical. In my actions, I did a lot of volunteerism around the community. I'm going to be honest, too. I didn't expect Trump to be as terrible as he was. I didn't think he was going to be good. I have a lot of family in New York and New Jersey, and they always knew he was a bozo and corrupt. But clearly the state of our country right now, I've never seen people so, every side is angry. Everybody's inflamed right now. And so for me, it wasn't a specific moment. It was just, I knew when I decided to run, I just decided to run because I was really upset about our current representative, because I'm not running against Donald Trump. I'm not running against Joe Biden. I'm not running against any of those people. All politics is local. And so I looked at my life and my experience and felt like a lot of people I loved had gotten a raw deal in this country, whether it was with, my mom's parents, my mom's mother, my grandmother, she broke her ankle in the 80s. They were getting medical bills the size of dictionaries. That's what her family would say, the size of phone books. And they went bankrupt, and they didn't have enough money to sue the supermarket. So to me, it's not about the presidency. It's about, what families are going through and have been going through for decades. One terrible president is only able to ruin things if they have a complicit Congress, if people are complicit down ballot. And one amazing president can only fix things with a Congress that's on board to make it happen. And so I was complaining, and my friend said, put up or shut up. Are you going to go out there and do a better job, or are you just going to complain? And so I said, all right. Now here I am.
Where's the location of the district, and what are the demographics of the district?
So Washington's 5th Congressional District is actually 25% bigger than the state of New Jersey geographically. Goes from Canada to Oregon, everything east of the Tri-Cities, east of another major population center, a third of the way down the state, a third of the way west. And so it's 10 counties, but 65% of our population's in one of those 10 counties. The second largest city in the state, Spokane, Washington. We are 89.4% white as a district as of the last census. As of the last census as well, we had 11% unemployment and a third of the population under the poverty line. So clearly my opponents, they're going for their 9th term. They have not served this district well. Regardless of what administrations they've been under, this district continues to suffer. And so, we have large Native American population out here, some large reservations, a growing migrant community. I'm really interested to see how this next census shakes out because the area has been diversifying and growing at an incredible rate. And so that's the district. That's the place I love. I've been to all 10 counties. Over the last year, we've held over events in over 25 towns as small as 200 people, over 100 events. And we're ready to win by that on the ground politics, even in the age of COVID where we can't quite meet people face to face.
Chris Armitage here on Fire Breathing Rob. He's running for representative of Washington State in the District 5. So Chris, can we talk about this? How has coronavirus affected your campaign?
Well, it's just another tactical challenge. Any battle can be won if you have a solid enough strategy, a good enough team, if you understand the terrain and what you're up against and understand yourself. So over the course of the last few months, we've switched to a digital campaign. We have been mixing it up with really strong text banking. They say the Beto O'Rourke Senate campaign texted everyone in Texas 10 times. And we were talking to some good folks who worked for the Sanders presidential campaign and for the O'Rourke senatorial campaign, who were offering some strong guidance on building a dynamic text banking program. We're standing up phone banking. I personally make hundreds of phone calls every single day. We do digital town halls. We connect with people that way. We get more signs up around the district. I can't speak for other places, but here in our district, with the size of it, good sign coverage is important. And then building more connections with different organizations. And during the quarantine, we've gotten endorsed by AFL-CIO, the Washington Federation of State Employees, and Teamsters, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, a bunch of other great organizations.
What are the constituents of your district telling you as far as the most important issues?
Well, healthcare, housing, and jobs are the big three, no matter what town you go to. I've been to small towns, maybe 1,000 people, and they still have a small homeless or housing insecure population, or a homeless shelter that's open a few days a week to give some food, do some laundry. And so this is affecting everywhere. And when you go to the larger population centers in our district, like Spokane and Walla Walla, you're meeting people who work jobs and can't afford a place, or they're spending 50 or 60% of their income for a rental property or for an apartment. I want those people in all those communities to be able to have a place to call their own. So we need quality employment with a living wage, just like the military provided me. We need quality, affordable housing, and housing as a human right for everyone, just like we had in the military. We need to guarantee that the jobs that come around are taking care of people's safety. They're good union jobs. And we need universal health care, because we're the only first world country where children die from insulin rationing. And also that hurts entrepreneurs that they can't go out and start their businesses because they need their health care for their family. It's just one of the largest drains on our economic growth you could possibly have.
With all those issues that a lot of these veterans face, and you yourself being a veteran, what ideas would you have to fix some of these issues?
I mean, it's such a huge issue. In Spokane alone, 80 people died. They froze to death last winter because we didn't have enough warming shelters. 80 humans in a not very large city. So, I mean, part of this is going to be fixing the VA. Here's the problem. We struggle to get the VA funded. It's always a fight. This country's never taken good care of our veterans since the Revolutionary War. We've been leaving our vets out to dry. I'm proposing having the VA absorbed by the DOD. I want the Department of Defense to take over all veteran health and medical needs, because then we'll never have to fight to fund veterans health care again. They always give the DOD plenty of money. Yeah. And so that's just going to be absorbed into it. Taking care of our veterans doesn't stop once they leave the military, once they leave active duty service. And that's how we show it, is by, we could hire such a larger medical corps in the military to help take on that need. And then other things, it's just going to be, all the means testing we do in our society. you serve your country in many ways, not just by deploying or signing that oath. You serve your country by paying your taxes, by raising good children, and being a productive and helpful and good member of your community. And so that means fixing healthcare is gonna help our veteran community, making sure that we have quality jobs, making sure expanding Social Security. Why are people on Social Security who are often also disabled veterans? Why are they only getting 1% raises each year? Why do we subtract pensions from Social Security? That affects an incredible number of veterans. If you pay into your pension, if you pay into your Social Security, you get both of them. Why do we subtract Medicare from your Medicare copays from your Social Security? Someone on Social Security pays more in taxes. A disabled person on Social Security, a disabled veteran on Social Security pays more in taxes than Jeff Bezos. That's not right. Nobody's even going to try and argue that side of it, but that's what exists right now. And so that's what helping veterans looks like to me, fixing these deep structural issues that we're facing in every community, rural, suburban, it doesn't matter.
But if you do make it to Congress, what issues would you kind of stand up for as far as this goes with this police brutality issue? It's pretty much gotten out of control. In the past couple of days, we've seen white, black, Hispanic, Native American people protesting on the streets, and they're all suffering together now through this militarization of the police. So what would you do?
Well, it's an interesting subject. The Second Amendment's a big thing, a big topic of conversation out here in a more rural area. And one of the big questions I ask people is, sure, you want to make sure you have guns. How comfortable are you with the militarization of the police, where now they're in a much stronger position to impose their will over you and to disrespect your constitutional rights? Because there's a lot. I wish we fought for every constitutional amendment the way we fight for the Second Amendment. This country would be a lot better off. And that's what's happening right now. And what I try to communicate to people is when a law enforcement officer takes the life of someone, that person has had their due process. They haven't had a trial by their peers, and that law enforcement officer has acted as judge, jury, and executioner. And their execution style has been the cruel and unusual punishment of a knee to the neck, a horrific way to die. And so that's the problem we need to address, and it is relevant at the federal level. So we need higher officer accountability. We need a federal agency independent from law enforcement with complete access and transparency over any law enforcement, any situation that happens that gets reported. We need a certification similar to the bar for law enforcement that can be taken away so someone can never work in law enforcement again based on infractions they receive, but also it has a standard for you need to be able to show that you are capable of de-escalation. I did a little bit of military law enforcement. That wasn't what I mainly focused on. My job was pretty diverse, but I'm a little guy, and I'm 5'3", and I've always liked making people laugh and getting along with people. I was never an escalation guy, but there are people in law enforcement who they spend all their time getting amped up, thinking about when they're finally going to get to use that taser that they have. And that's not good. We need people who are focused on de-escalation. We also need, like most countries on earth, the cops aren't walking around with 5 different weapons on them. They're walking around talking to people in an equal way. And then if they need someone with a gun, they call and they get backup from someone with a gun. What are we seeing in these protests? They turn violent when the police come in there and they're shoving people around and don't you dare look at me that way, or don't you dare say that to me. But when the police officers take off their riot gear and stand in solidarity, walk in solidarity, when they take the actual step, take off your gear, this isn't escalation. That's what we're facing right now, is the police have essentially become an occupying military force where we are the enemy. We, the people, are the enemy.
Well, how come you don't start at the local level, councilman, or run for something local, and then move up the ladder?
Well, I'll start by saying it's up for the voters to decide what they want. In 2018, 85% of the people who were elected were first-time congressional candidates. People are ready for outsiders, but more importantly, there's different types of experience. I don't think being in the government, being an elected official, like my opponent, they've been an elected official since I was 2 years old, and before that, they worked for an elected official, and before that, they were a child, and their father was a chair of the local county Republican Party. They were raised for this, and so I don't think the people who've gotten us into this mess are going to get us out of it. That's a fact. Another fact is we need people in the U.S. House of Representatives who know what it's like to make minimum wage, to be uninsured and underinsured, who know what it's like to struggle like the rest of us do. And that makes you qualified, not how many county internal party this or that's you've done. No, your willingness to listen to the community, fight for the community, and not use our future as a political bargaining chip. And in many cases, I think institutional experience makes people less qualified to represent their community because they're only more detached from the needs of the 99%.
Right. I was just actually looking up while you were talking that Kathy McMorris Rogers then? And she's in the leadership. Is she in the leadership or is that someone else? I'm sorry.
She was the fourth highest ranking Republican in 2017.
Right.
She stepped back from her leadership roles. My opponent is the worst Republican most people have never heard of. They do a real good job of speaking out of both sides of their mouth, and they lie. They lie. Donate today so I can get on the debate stage and make sure to let my opponent know to their face in a way that nobody has before that they've lied to the people of our district, and it's cost lives here in our community, here in our nation, and around the world. Because that's what they do, and they don't get called on it. And that's about 20% of the reason I'm running. It's time for someone to call them out to their face.
What would you do as far as helping these people get back to work? Because a lot of them, are sheltered in place. And even if they come out of that, which a lot of states are slowly coming out of right now, they don't have these jobs to go back to because a lot of these corporations, they're just going to cut these jobs out and they're not going to come back. So what would you do in Congress to, help these people get jobs once this crisis fully ends?
We need a federal jobs guarantee. If you want a job, you get a job. It's time to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. When you look at the history of the United States, our economy boomed when we invested in the public, whether it was the New Deal policies or entering World War II and that putting people to work. There isn't something that makes a bomb add more economic value than a solar panel or food or housing. Constructive things can add just as much, if not more, to our economy as building tools of war. And so let's put America to work. If you want a job, you get a job, and you're going to be treated right at that job so you can go have disposable income. Because I've heard people say, oh no, people are blowing their stimulus check on a flat screen TV. And I say, well, Mr. Capitalist, why don't you go build yourself some flat screen TVs and start selling them to these people? So let's get people to work if they want a job, start fixing America up. I think the place could use some repairs.
I agree 100%. As we continue on with the topic with the stimulus, with a few questions left, this is Chris Armitage. If you go to armitageforcongress.com, you can definitely find more about him. He's running in Washington State for District 5. What did you feel about the stimulus? To me, it was a bunch of corporate giveaways. And what would you have done in Congress to try to make that stimulus and, in general, make sure that people are able to live right now and not go homeless?
$2,000 a month. It's pretty straightforward. I'd like to remove all means testing. Canada did a great job. You file on their website, they get you the money 2 days later, and on your next tax season taxes, that's when they decide if you need to pay it back or not. That's it. I think that's a pretty reasonable proposal. We've been throwing trillions of dollars of tax cuts around, so cutting this country's revenue streams. We got to take care of people. You need to be able to buy food. 1918 was the Spanish flu, and it actually decimated Russia. They got hit so hard because their government was so corrupt and inept and not interested in taking care of the people. So folks started starving and ended up out of work and ended up homeless on a mass level, while a corrupt upper class, they continued to reap the benefits and just self-serve and rob the people of Russia. And 1919, the Bolshevik Revolution happened. So folks who are worried about communism or other, terrible things, you might want to make sure your population's fed. That might be helpful.
I want to talk about this as we wind down the interview. Chris Armitage, and if you look at his website, it's armitageforcongress.com. Washington State 5th District is what he's running for. With the Sanders campaign going down right now, and Biden ultimately will get the nomination, you think that's a step back for progressives, or where do you feel like the progressive movement is right now?
It's a good question. I mean, when you look at the number of candidates running across the country who come from working class backgrounds, who didn't accept wait your turn as an answer, I think it's a really good sign that the movement is alive and well and thriving. And not only that, 2018, there was a little bit of a novelty to brand new progressives when you looked at, say, AOC or Paula Jean Swearingen. Their fundraising numbers are really interesting to look at. They broke onto the scene really strong because people were interested. It's not what people were used to seeing, long-term incumbents being challenged by people within their own party in that way. And now that's increased 100-fold. But not only the newness of it's leaving, but people are getting better at campaigning. And that's, I think, where we look at the future of shifting electoral politics. And personally, I'm happy to see people on the streets making their voices heard. I think it happens on the streets and it happens in the ballot boxes, not just one or the other, although I'd like to see some general strikes. And so we, what I see is a lot of people learning and getting involved and not disappearing. I all along have said, Donald Trump can't ruin everything on his own, and Bernie Sanders couldn't fix everything on his own. We need Congress that's accountable and that understands, that actually listens to the public, that takes the public seriously, not just their donors.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this, because I hear from progressives all over the country that I interview, and they say that the Democratic establishment pretty much is lined up against them. You know, they get charged to not only be put on the ballot, but also for the ban data, to get other materials that they need to win. I know that's a pretty progressive state, but, you know, when you look at the Democratic machine all over the country, they, you know, pick winners and losers themselves. So how has the machine in Washington State, have they helped you? Have they not really got involved in the race? Well, what is the story with that?
Well, you know, I wasn't recruited for this.
Right.
Someone had just stepped up to give it to you know, try and be the change I wanted to see. And the state party, you know, they got their focuses, they got their attention put where they want it. Doors haven't been shut on us. I'm running against a Republican. At the last minute, someone filed who, you know, usually just dumps a bunch of their own money in, but we do a jungle primary, so it's you know, there's an independent and 2 Republicans. It's pretty interesting. The state party, they have their priorities, they're focused where they are. At the county level, at the LD level, the Democratic Party's been good to us. They've worked at least to voice support. Fact is, Democratic Party isn't very good at winning elections in Eastern Washington, because we haven't won very many. I'm here to represent the people of Eastern Washington. If there was a Washington's 5th Congressional District party, that'd be my party, not Democrat or Republican or Independent or anything else. And I think that's really how we take back our country. You know, it's not just about progressive or conservative or liberal. It's about, you know, these policies are the policies I believe in, and I'm going to fight for them, and I'm going to hear everybody out. And that's how we take back our country.
But you're in kind of a middle of the road district where it's half and half. With that, how do you get some of those conservative Republican Trump supporters? Because we saw this in 2016. A lot of these Trump supporters, I believe, and the ones that I've talked to in Florida, voted for Trump because they liked his message. He was saying that, basically he said he was for Medicare for all. He said he was against NAFTA. He was for, making sure the working man was going to get some help in this country. To be honest, that's where those people were attracted. So do you feel like you can, as a progressive, get some of those conservative Republican voters that like Trump's message, but maybe they're disenchanted with the president right now, or maybe they still like him and they're just looking for somebody to stick up for them in general?
Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of the people I know who voted for Trump, they voted for him because they saw him as anti-establishment.
Right.
And that's still something they care about. Most of what I've found is a lot of the conservative voters I meet hate Republicans and Democrats. They just hate Democrats more than Republicans most of the time. And so you know, my bumper sticker is actually next to some Trump bumper stickers. And you know what? I don't vote shame people. Here in this district, I'm going to do my best to hear every voice. And whether you're a doctor or, you know, you work in a lot of other different fields where you have to say, even people I don't like, even people I might find the actions of despicable, their actions despicable, I still need to represent them. I still need to take care of them. I still need to hear them. And I think that's what real service means. Service before, I have a history of service before self, but you know, putting the needs of people before my own. My opponent has a history of serving themselves. And you know, the things when you go around this district, I've been to some towns that no one running for Congress has ever been to, towns of a few hundred people, and they're, you know, when they say "Make America Great Again," well, what does it mean? What are the metrics we're looking at? What are we counting it by? Because you know what, there was a time we had the best schools in the world, and we also had the largest middle class in human history from 1958 to 1964. That was also the period where we had the largest amount of union membership. And so there's a clear correlation between large union membership and the amount of wealth held by the 90%. And so look at the metrics that make America great. All right, let's do those. We don't just get to pat ourselves on the back and pretend like we're doing a great job because we have a big economy and a bunch of tanks. We need the best schools in the world. We need the best standard of living in the world. We need the best infrastructure in the world. That's greatness, and that can get Trump supporters on board. That can get moderates on board and get progressives on board. These are things that span all across the political spectrum. And the only way you can honestly and sincerely fight for them is by answering to the people, not the donor class, and that's how we win.
Well, Chris, I think you're doing it the right way, because that's the problem, I think, with the Democratic Party. They don't see and talk to people that voted for Donald Trump and find out why, you know, they voted for him instead of Hillary Clinton.
Well, I think part of it is about growing beyond the terminology and the in-group, out-group dynamics. Fact is, if only people who identified as progressive voted for me, I would lose by a lot. And that's a fact. That's a fact. But that's because it's a label.
Yeah.
I've got support from libertarians. I've got some support from conservatives. I've got some support from progressives, from all over the spectrum, because it's about meeting people's needs. The future of our movement is really building a big tent, not just the "I hate Donald Trump" tent. It's the, hey, libertarians, I also want to decriminalize sex work. I also want to decriminalize I want to decriminalize drugs and expunge the records of nonviolent drug offenders. Hey, conservatives, you know what's a conservative value? Not just conserving capital, but conserving human life, but conserving the environment. That's a conservative value. And so that's the future of our movement, is by actually showing that we as individuals, more than a party, more than a political lane, are addressing the needs that people want. If you want to get involved, step up, join a campaign, join a volunteer organization. It's not going to get fixed in a day. It's tough meeting people who served in Korea and then have been protesting every war since Vietnam, and they say, we've still been Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years, but we got to get smarter and we got to keep working, because you don't fight because you know you're going to win. You fight because it's what's right.
Right. Chris, as we end the interview, this is Chris Armitage. You go to ArmitageForCongress.com. He's running for Washington State, the 5th District. So, Chris, as we end the interview, can you tell people where they can find more about you and help you out in general? And also tell them when the election is, please.
Yeah, so ballots get mailed out in the next few weeks. August 4th is when our primary is. We do a top 2 primary, so I'm going against a bunch of people. We want to be the first campaign to come in first in our primary and defeat our Republican opponent in the primary. Then we'll face them again in the general and win again in the general. I'm also the only Medicare for All candidate running against a Republican in a district that was just on the DCCC red to blue list last cycle. So if you can help us fund a campaign that refuses corporate PAC money, and by going to ArmitageForCongress.com, ArmitageFor Congress.com. If you can become a digital volunteer to help us reach more people in this district with the winning message, that would be incredibly appreciated, because we're fighting for our future. And that's why our slogan right there, a future worth fighting for, because we get the future we fight for.
Thanks so much, Chris. If you go to Armitage, Mitag for Congress.com. Definitely check him out. He's a great candidate, and I really appreciate the time you spent with us today, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I think you're great too, so I appreciate it.